Set, watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Dive Podcast. I'm your host of Trap or Dive Podcast, Mual. The fellas are in here. AJ Dre is in here live. This is a Commanders post-game recap. The final post-game recap of the 2025 season. One of the worst seasons I have endured in a long time. Maybe in a couple years. I don't know. Depends on how you want to look at it. But Washington ends their season with a win. I know some people are upset about that. 24-17. They moved to 5-12. It fucks up the draft order. If you were rooting for that fifth spot, they possibly had a potential with the Giants and the Browns winning. Let's get the administrative items out of the way. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're on the YouTube side of things. We appreciate you checking in. Audio side, hit the button, man. Follow, rate, and review if you can. It takes 10 seconds to do so, and it's free to show your support that way. Shout out to, I did say that I was going to get slandered probably a little bit. When that Ben Simmons film session came out, I was not surprised that came to fruition. But I appreciate everybody who watched it. It is still up there if you want to check it out. I haven't done so yet on the Trap or Dive YouTube channel. We got one more coming up. Well, we got a couple coming up now that the off season's here. But next up is what's the dude's name? Johnny Newton will come out this week. I was gonna put it out Friday or Saturday, and I thought to wait for the game, fellas. I said, let me see if he do something in the Philly game. And what did he do in the Philly game? I could have just put that shit out on Friday or Saturday. But anyway, he's coming up next. Fellas, how y'all doing? We haven't spoken since the new year on the show. Happy New Year to everybody that's watching live as well. Happy New Year. I hope y'all was safe, did y'all thing, wherever y'all want to do y'all thing, bringing in the New Year's. How y'all feeling, man?
I'm pissed. God damn, man. What a way to end a stupid season with a meaningless win that takes you out of the top 5 in the draft. And I think the gap between top 5 and top 7 is probably going to be huge. I mean, we can probably pick the right player, but I think a better player is probably going to be picked ahead of us. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm emotionally talking right now, but yeah, as of right now, I'm not feeling too well, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I really don't care where they were drafting at. I think it's not like back in the day, not even back in the day that long ago, but it's not like they were battling for like number 1, number 2, or number 3. And you had quarterbacks like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels available. And I guess you could throw in Drake May if that's your cup of tea. For me, it's just funny. It's hilarious because the fans wanted Washington to lose, and they can't even do that right. So that's just how.
When they don't.
I mean, that's just how I look at it. I think for me, it's more so whether you at number 5 or you at number 7 or you could have been at pick 28. You just got to hit on the player that you picking in the first round. That's all that matters. And I think that there still will be some talent available when that comes. It's just more so, do you trust Adam Peters to make that pick? And I think there's a lot of conversations that we'll have here on Trap or Dive tonight that won't revolve around this damn game that we just watched.
Yeah, the game itself, a nothing burger in terms of like the meaning of it. I mean, Philly had a chance to take the number 2 seed. They lost, they blew it. Washington, on their end, you weren't playing for anything except for pride. Dan Quinn said we're going to have to see these guys in 2 weeks. Or they're going to have to see us in 2 weeks. And he sure showed them. He sure showed them.
He showed Tanner McKee.
Yeah, he showed them motherfuckers. He said, yeah, I told y'all we was going to come and get this dub. I'm with y'all from the sense of like a stupid win. But I'm not too upset. Like I'm not mad. And it's more so leaning on the fact like I had no expectation. I had all the expectations in the world that Washington was going to go and try to win the game. Like they never showed any at any point this season that they quit on the season. They just ain't good. And when you play your third string quarterback, whoever the hell, I think that's their third string quarterback, McGee, and I mean only Devontae Smith played for what, a couple, like the first half, I think. It wasn't really all of their starters. Their starters ain't play like you were gonna have a chance to beat them. And like my overarching thing really relies around what AJ mentioned too. It's all about who's gonna pick the player. I mean, if two spots, and this is where me and Dre are on the opposite sides of the fence. But you're not alone, Dre, because I see people say the same thing that you say on Twitter in terms of like just the difference between a top 5 and outside of the top 5. And my thing is though, like if that difference of 2 slots potentially, right, being top 5 or picking 6, as opposed to 7, if that makes a huge difference in your ability to find a cornerstone player when you have the 7th pick in the draft for your first overall pick, and you can't find a player that can like be an instant impact guy, whatever position it is, I'm not even about to speculate. We got all season to do that. Then I don't think you were built for this job. And I think like that's kind of my thing when I look at any aspect, like moving forward with this draft, and this offseason altogether. What's going to be more difficult is going to be the picks after the first round. I think you don't pick against the third round, right? So you don't have a second round pick. But at the end of the day, like evaluate your prior drafts, like your first 2 drafts. Who has been key contributors? I mean, you had three second round picks in your first draft. Johnny Newton is playing. Mike Sainristil is playing. All right. And I will give credit to Mike Sainristil in terms of his impact. He's created turnovers. He's the only one creating turnovers. I won't take that away from him. Johnny Newton, he had a 3-sack game. That was his most impactful performance throughout the season. But I mean, we're talking about a person who fucking non-existent outside of the 3-sack performance. And honestly, those 3 sacks, 2 of them were fed to him from his teammates doing their job. And I say this to say, congrats to Ben Sinnott. He had 2 catches today, averaging 2 catches a game. Congratulations. I think he had 9 yards, or not even 9, probably like 3,
like 1 or 2 yards.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations. And I guess the reason, and going back to my point, what like who has been super consistent on offensively or defensively? We're excluding teams. Where is the
Mo?
Where's the what? What's up, bro? Because you
bro, you talked about his catches, but he had 2 red zone false starts.
You just I'm not even worried about Ben. That's not even my question. My question is who beyond this first 2 rounds, even in the first 2 rounds, if you want to include them, are actually super impactful. Which is going to my point of the 2025 or 2026 draft. You have a first round pick and then you have a third round pick. Adam Peters cannot afford to miss on any of his 5. Can't afford it. I'm not saying. I mean, it's like the reality is it's going to be hard for you to be perfect, but you are in a deficit. You cannot afford to have a couple of your draft picks to be ineffective and out of the league in a year or 2, or just not outright not doing shit. You got to have like at least those first 3 doing something for you and doing something like in a major way. That doesn't include special teams. Motherfucker, make some turnovers on defense, score some touchdowns on offense.
Yeah, man. I think like, yeah, that's my main thing. Like I hear Dre, but I think once he gets to sit down with his thought a bit more, he'll come over to our side. I mean, yeah. This is a draft that there's a lot of talent, you know? And I think even the way that people are predicting the board to go, I think that there's going to be some things that surprise you on draft day. Like, I think a lot of people. What pick do the Giants have currently?
They got 6, I believe, 6th or 5th. One of them.
Okay. So if it's 6th or 5th, I'm like, people are thinking that they might go wide receiver. whatever the case is. I'm like, what about Jeremiah Love at running back? Like, you add in a running back with what they have at QB, I guess, because it sounds like they're gonna hire somebody that got familiarity with Dart. Like that changes their offense overall. But I just think, like even Maul alluded to, man, it's way too many players in this draft, and I don't think that there's any top 10 wide receiver in this draft. I know we had this conversation probably privately or whatever. So I'm not the Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate guy, whatever the case is. But I feel like there's someone that can help this team. At a David Bailey, Ruben Bain in some aspect. I'm not necessarily a fan for this team for him, but you got Peter Woods. You got so many other guys that could bring some type of value. And if you feel like you're not satisfied with them, you trade back. But the thing is, the person right now that we know of that's still employed as a GM, I don't really know if his expertise of what they're saying has shown within Washington, which was the later rounds hidden on picks. You have nothing to show for it. I mean, you could see Jordan McGee run fast, but I mean, there's a lot of linebackers these days that can run fast. Like to me, he's a jag. You know, um, we talked about Senate, Jag. Lane, Jag at wide receiver, Luke, Jag. Like you don't have anything to really like showcase or champion for like this is what we can point to, like this person did an amazing job with this selection. And the same thing goes for even like Dan Quinn with his defense. You can't champion his defense. There's nothing to point to. So essentially you got two guys that are employed where their specialty is not anything to champion for right now. So that's where it makes it a very intriguing offseason and probably one of the most important off seasons as a Washington Commanders fan in a very long time, because this is make or break it, or you might be on to a new GM and new head coach next year. And another thing where Amani, you debunked Diana Rossini's reporting. I know I tweeted about this yesterday, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I feel like whenever there's a female that reports on things within the NFL, they get so much like pushback. Same thing happens with Josina Anderson, you feel me? Or Mina Kimes. But like Josina and Diana Rossini are actual NFL insiders. They are highly credentialed with the NFL and these organizations. Just think about it as a man. Like most dudes in real life, they pillow talk with who? Women. So what do you think is happening in organizations with coaches, GMs, all those things? I think that we have to stop just saying, oh, those things don't exist. Like whatever she reports is BS, is fake. No, there is traction there. They just got to be careful how they put it out there and how it's worded. But there's traction, and we're seeing now everybody's jumping on board with the Cliff thing. So I just think that it's real. And you're looking at an organization that is probably going to keep their head coach, but that head coach is going to have to hire two new coordinators. And it's not because they got promoted to other teams, which is a very interesting thing. And I don't think I've ever seen in the NFL where a coach has returned and had to replace an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator that weren't hired as head coaches elsewhere.
And for me, I just want to kind of elaborate more on why why I feel the way I feel today. Yes, I'm going to get over it because I have no choice. We're going to have the 7th pick in the draft, and you just have to get used to that, get adjusted to it, maybe hope some of those guys fall, hope some of those teams in front of you are quarterback desperate, and some of those quarterbacks go early. But for me, it's more about options. Like if I didn't have any money in my pocket and someone said, hey, I'll give you either $100 or $500, I'm gonna want the $500. Sure, I don't have any money in my pocket. I can make something happen with this $100, but I'll have more options with this $500. That's how it was for me as far as draft position. And when I say options, you're gonna have options at more of the top end talent in a draft that I think suffers from top end talent. You're also gonna have more options for those trade down for a team that has 5-6 picks in this draft that Washington does. we need more options. We need more picks somehow in this draft. I don't think we can end in this draft with the picks that we are going into this draft with.
But Dre, what has having additional picks brought you in 2024?
More options.
It got you more ass. But it got you more ass.
I will give them grace for that, AJ, because that was
in 2024. It gave you more ass to look at.
Come on, bro.
Jag. Okay, it gave you more Jags. You had more options of Jags.
But even still,
just another ass.
To me, that's an excuse to not do anything. It's basically saying, why do anything because you don't trust? Why have more swings or why have more bites at the apple because you don't trust the guy picking? If I don't trust the guy picking, I'd rather give him more swings than have limited swings, because limited swings is more likely he's not going to give you more than you have. If I have more swings, it's a possibility that my percentage of hitting on those picks will go up higher. So that's my whole point. Is I just would have rather had options.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's just in April, even next year or whatever, I'm not going to remember this Philadelphia win for anything other than, oh, it was useless. I'm not going to remember that some rookie that we had or some young guy that we had a great game, because that didn't happen today. I'm not going to remember this as the Johnny Newton breakout game or another Johnny Newton consistent game. I'm not going to remember it for anything. I might not even remember that Josh Johnson even played in this game. But I will remember that we may, or at least at this point, I'm going to remember that we have the 7th pick in the draft. Like, hopefully you do hit on that. Yes, we need to hit on every pick. But if you don't trust the guy, which I'm not saying I don't trust Adam Peters, but if I don't trust him, or if you do trust him, whatever, you want him to have a better chance or a better swing in the draft than he does currently. That's just facts of the matter.
Here's my thing. So like in the sense of what you're saying, I get it. I also think and shout out to Aoshi. I said 5 picks. I said it on Twitter too, but they have 6 picks. But I think my main thing and what you're saying, having 7 or more is beneficial, and maybe they do find a way to accumulate 7 or more come draft day, 1, 2, or 3, whoever knows. But I think what also helps if you have more picks, it makes the leash a little bit shorter for Adam Peters if you don't hit on those picks. And that's kind of the pessimistic view of it, but at least it further confirms your faith in him or your lack of faith. And obviously, you won't know either until time moves forward, but time move forward meaning like 2027 season or something like that, or maybe even after the 2026 season. But I think at the end of the day, when you have more picks and you can start to see where they go with the picks they have, the pick analysis, the rationale for why you choose let me go back to a layup of mine, why you choose Johnny Newton over T'Vondre Sweat. Granted, Johnny's accolades in college was, it's no slouch, but still, you're projecting a pro player here. I think those things, like the draft analysis, the rationale, is all going to be something that is going to be taken into account from the evaluator of Adam Peters moving forward. I think honestly, and just even moving on from Adam Peters, wait, what time? 20 minutes. Let's do an ad break. We ain't gonna be on here for too long. When we come back, we'll talk about Rossini, right? So we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about the Rossini report briefly. We'll kind of rehash that on Tuesday because we have a guest that's gonna come on, and we'll talk a little bit more about it then. But let's kind of get our initial thoughts out there from us three. So we'll take the ad break now. When we come back, we'll close out with the reporting on the coaching staff and etc. In the meantime, let me tell y'all about these people over here at Underdog Fantasy. Football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, and more. We do have a Baltimore-Pittsburgh game tonight. Now, I'm trying to remember. I think I did this game on the All 32 podcast, but because there is no Monday night game, and maybe I did mess up, we're gonna run it back. We're gonna do 4 picks, two players each team. Lamar Jackson is coming back for the game. Lamar Jackson's passing and rushing yards is at 239.5. We're gonna go lower on Lamar Jackson's 239.5 passing and rushing yards. Aaron Rodgers. No, we're not going to do Aaron Rodgers. We're going to keep that at Lamar. We're going to go to, where's the receptions at? Kenneth Gainwell. That's my dog. Kenneth Gainwell, he's at 4.5 receptions. We're going to go higher on Kenneth Gainwell's 4.5 receptions. I can see him getting like 7, 8 of them things. Zay Flowers, he's a tricky guy. And it's funny because right on All 32, he'll tell you in a heartbeat, don't put him on any tickets because he don't ever perform. But all Zay Flowers do is cook. And he had his random dud, right? I'm afraid that this could be the random dud, but I don't think it's going to be it. Higher on Zay Flowers, 62.5 receiving yards. All right. So we got Lamar Jackson passing and rushing. We're going over or higher, Zay Flowers, higher on 62.5 receiving yards. Higher on Kenneth Gainwell's receptions, 4.5. And then we're going to do rushing and receiving. So we can do Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is at 64.5 rushing and receiving yards. We're going to go higher. All right, there we go. Download the app today and use promo code TRAPPERDIVE to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That is promo code TRAPPERDIVE. Underdog. Make picks. Win money.
Be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right. So let's talk about some one-sentence takeaways, and then we'll close out with the reporting. Pretty much a lot of people. Wait, where is it before I even start yapping? Okay. It's not too many today, and I'm not surprised because everybody's sick of this season. Amani said, it's time to see if AP is a gourmet chef or a fast food cook. Damn! Zim 489, culture wins are utterly meaningless when you suck and 25 new players are due to be here next year. Damn! NQS 88, never been more glad for a season to come to an end. Okay. A little bit more peaceful. Ian Webb, last year we thought it was the end of the era, but the end of this year is just the end of it. That's funny. End of an era. Damn. Okay. Benjamin, boycott until DQ is fired and we have competent coaching that understands stakes instead of catchy quotes. Damn. Picking 5 is better than 7, so of course they win. Damn. Western Sunset, fire DQ. Damn. All right. Got a couple more, but I'll let those rock. All right. Let's get to the reporting, man. So I think what's surprising to some people when the initial report that came out, for those who don't know, I'm gonna kind of sum it up. It's not word for word, it's not verbatim. But essentially Diana Rossini came out with a report in The Athletic essentially saying, don't be surprised if Cliff Kingsbury, is no longer a Washington Commander offensive coordinator, even if he does not get a head coaching job. He may not be here next year. And she also alluded to there being a disconnect between Kingsbury and Adam Peters. And some people were surprised when they heard that, from the standpoint of two things. One, wonder what the disconnect is. That's such a vague reporting or a vague way to throw in disconnect. Like, what are the details? Like, what does that mean exactly? It's left up for speculation. Not a criticism of Diana, but it's more so just actually diving into or trying to peel back the layers of what a disconnect is. And then there's another conversation saying, well, what has Cliff Kingsbury done? He's been behind the 8 ball all season, dealing with injuries, et cetera, and all these things. Why is he the focus when the defensive side should be the main focus, or even the head coach, right? So that's where we are. If you haven't heard anything, that's where we are right now. Fellas, what are your initial thoughts when you hear just kind of the conversation behind Cliff Kingsbury potentially not being back, regardless of getting a promotion?
Well, yeah, when I talked to y'all about it the other day, my initial thought when I first read it, I said, okay, this is a little bit strange because what could the disconnect be between the offensive coordinator and the GM? Like my thing would be, or my thought would be that if there was a disconnect, it would be between the offensive coordinator and the HC, the head coach. But Diana's reported and has been a little shady at best when it comes to Washington, but I don't think she's kind of just false reporting here. Maybe the disconnect thing could be, just overusage of the word. But if I had to think of anything that could be a disconnect, it would be probably Cliff's utilization of Jaden this season. Like, I mean, maybe AP wasn't happy with that, because I always thought that when they shut Jaden down for the season, that call came above Dan Quinn's head. Like, I don't think that call came from Dan Quinn. I think if it was up to Dan Quinn, Jaden, a healthy Jaden, or whenever Jaden was cleared to play football, he would have played football to the end of the season. But I thought that call came from upstairs. So again, maybe that's the disconnect she could be alluding to, is that it came from how Cliff used Jaden. Because I mean, if anybody, we talked about this, is that when you watch Mariota play this season and when you watch Jaden play, there was clearly a difference in how they called the game, at least. I usually hate when people say that, but this was kind of clear when you watched it. Like, he relied more on Jaden, as a passer, which means he wasn't relying a lot on the run game, which I thought could have helped Jaden out a lot. But when Mariota was in, they kind of ran heavy a little bit more. They leaned on the run game a little bit more. They kind of looked for ways to get Mariota out in space with his legs that I thought, could have helped Jaden out. So, I mean, I think if we're talking about a disconnect, that could be it. But I do think there's something to Cliff possibly not being here anymore. And it's not just because of Diana's report. I think, Ian Rappaport, I believe, and what's the guy, Tom Pelissero, I know Tom Pelissero and someone else, it may have been Ian Rappaport, reported something else along those lines. He didn't use the verbiage that Diana used in terms of a disconnect, but they said that, they could go elsewhere with the offensive coordinator. And for me, from my standpoint, when I see, multiple reports like that, it's a soft launch. It's like a soft launch to let you know this guy will not be here next year. So I'm kind of leaning towards about 85% that Cliff probably won't be the offensive coordinator next year. But I don't think they'll have to fire Cliff. I think Cliff's just going to take another job, whatever that job could be. It could be a lateral move. It could be a promotion to a head coach somewhere. But I do think that this is kind of that soft launch to say that Cliff is moving on. And it may not be just because of a disconnect with AP. It just could be, he feels a little bit differently in how things are being ran, and not just AP, but Dan Quinn and whoever else may feel a little bit differently, and it's just time to move on. But I do think that there's something to these reports, and we probably would not see Cliff back here being the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Amani, that is something I should have brought up. I think the timing is actually interesting too, because the report came out from her where she kind of like put a microscope on it, came out on Saturday, and the end of the season press conference with AP and DQ, I think, is tomorrow. I think it's going to happen tomorrow, but either way, it's going to be real soon. So I think from the standpoint of even getting a conversation from them out of it, you probably won't get much. But like, now it's going to be a focus uh, within that media room trying to understand what possibly could exist. Ben Standig, uh, who is an independent reporter now, and doesn't work for an outlet. He actually had a quote today in a story that he came up with, and he said, in his story, that another source familiar with Washington's internal dynamics described the situation succinctly, intriguing theater. Another thing, I don't know what the fuck that means. But when you think about just like how this thing is going on, like they have done a really good job, everybody in that organization, of putting a lid on what potentially, if there were more mouths that was yapping, it can be like a clown show in a sense. Because this is really teetering on the brink of like throwing coordinators under the bus. Like that's what it can be viewed as if you really wanted to kind of like say something so plainly. Because like if you look at this, Joe Witt, trash. That's the perception and opinion. I think is rightfully so. I think he was above his skis. I think is the right phrase to say it. But Cliff Kingsbury, effective offense, but like even some of your elements, the basic elements of what could make an effective offense even more dangerous, didn't have it. All right, despite the talent or lack of talent that you didn't have in year two. But again, like who's putting that information out there to Diana? AJ made the point of saying that this actually probably isn't even a Washington thing. This is probably somebody, which makes it even worse, somebody who's protecting Cliff, because Cliff has a connection to Diana. So all that to say, like people who run their mouth when the season is as bad as it is, like you're gonna have people trying to say it themselves. And there's a couple people in this and in Washington's organization who are in that very familiar predicament when a season is this bad. It's like, who do I need to talk to? Or who do I need to talk to like get my side out there and like all of these things. And I think for Washington, you can look at Cliff, who's in that position. Joe Witt, if he wanted to, which he isn't. He's taking his L's on the chin. But there are plenty of people out there who can really afford to like save themselves in this situation. And maybe Cliff is one of those people if he's truly connected to Diana in that aspect.
Man, you see what I'm saying? Like, we got people in here learn her place. Like, come on, dog. Like, it's just misogynistic behavior, and it's like for someone like myself that's been in the industry, bro. This ain't the streets, man. Like, this is not the hood. Like, these people that work in this corporate space gossip no different than your job. At your job you work at, we all have been in situations where we've had someone at our job that just gossips about everybody, like, and they comfortable doing so. And I just think with Cliff, it could be a magnitude of things, like the guy that represents him agent wise. I mean, he's not. He works for Rock Nation, right? He has a great position, but as far as like how he maneuvers, he's a weird dude. So at the end of the day, you just never know what angle is coming from. I just think that you got to take credence to it, especially how Dan Quinn built his staff. Cliff is the only guy that is on staff that he's never worked with or really had a relationship with. He didn't have a relationship with Cliff. Like, he loved how he diagnosed his scheme offensively, but he didn't have a relationship with him. They didn't work together. And a lot of the success that Washington was able to have offensively had to do with tempo. So are you telling me the tempo can only work when Jaden's in? If Mariota has to play or any other quarterback, they're not practicing with the same tempo and the same scheme? Like, that's essentially what you're looking at. You don't see the scheme look the same, like we just said. Like you don't see it look that way, and it almost feels like let's go back to even the Ben Simmons thing. I know we hate talking about him, but that pick looks like a 49ers pick. That looks like someone that and AP said it out his mouth to beat Kyle Juszczyk. Cliff Kingsbury's offense does not utilize a guy in the way Kyle Juszczyk is. You feel me? Like that's not what Ben Simmons that's not what Ben Simmons is being asked to do really in this offense. Like it's weird. So there has to be something going on there. I just find it interesting if you're going to be in position to where you have to look for a new offensive coordinator, and we know a new defensive coordinator is coming in, then why not just get rid of the damn head coach altogether at this rate? That's just how I feel. So I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a big powwow and campfire happening over there. And I think maybe people aren't used to it because this new regime has been so close knit at the lip with things coming out that they want to believe like things ain't real, but it is real. It's just you're now not winning anymore. You're now losing. This is what happens when you lose. Like information like this is gonna come out the day before Black Monday. Like Black Monday is infamous in the NFL, and that's exactly what's taking place right now. And I just think be prepared to find out even more later on this week about that relationship and that breakdown. Because in my opinion, Cliff's offense doesn't work for Jaden long term. I shared something with you guys that I found online that I normally wouldn't even typically share, but I just found it astonishing. The fact that Washington has been under center the fewest times among all the NFL teams, and 46 of those under center snaps, 38 of those were run and 8 of those were passes. Like, you're not really running a balanced offense here at this point. You're not running an offense that looks familiar to what Adam Peters is even used to picking from a personnel standpoint. So I think when you break it down that way, it is just probably where the disconnect is. Some people might allude to it being, oh, Terry McLaurin's contract. No, that's football. Like, that's the business side, but there's definitely a way that Adam Peters visions his offense looking and how he acquires players for that offense versus what a Cliff Kingsbury does with his personnel and his offensive scheme. And
AJ,
that's why I feel like the disconnect is.
can I ask you this? And I'm asking this for a reason. And let's hypothetically say Cliff is gone after the season. Who would you want hiring the offensive coordinator, the head coach, or the GM? And I asked that because remember, we had a situation before when Jay Gruden was here. He said a couple of times he didn't have autonomy over who he can pick as his coaching staff. That was up to Bruce Allen and kind of Dan Snyder at the time. So would you approve of Adam Peters kind of stepping in and say, hey, I believe this is the offensive coordinator we should go with? Or would you put that in Dan Quinn's hands?
I mean, I would like for the head coach and the GM to be on the same page, but it's very rare that those things kind of happen. I'm not quite sure of the background things if Dan Quinn was really at the end of the day, Dan if Adam Peters really wanted Dan Quinn as his head coach. I'm not quite sure of that, right? So in this case, I just see them falling back on familiarity once again, like we see in a lot of things in life, familiarity. I just see that being the situation with this. Whoever's going to be the OC is going to have some type of connection with either Adam Peters or Dan Quinn or either one of those. Like that's just what it's going to be. So I'm not going to be overly surprised by one of those hires having that connection. I think it would be weird if it were a newbie, like if it were still a connection. Let's say Al Harris. I mean, you're gonna bring in a first time defensive coordinator to help you keep your job. That's scary as hell. You're gonna possibly elevate David Blau to be to be your OC, and he's never called plays before. That's scary. So that's where I think it gets a bit tricky, and where I think in one of the reporters' information, they said that they've already been in pursuit of their defensive coordinator. So that means they already have a short list prepared. Like they're ready. Now, from the offensive standpoint, I think we'll see all of that reveal itself within the next couple of days. What happens with Cliff?
What was your question, bro?
No, I was asking and I was specifically asking because AJ was bringing up the fact that he thought that maybe there was a disconnect in the player or the utilization of how Cliff uses the players that Adam drafted. And I'm like, well, if you're moving on from Cliff after this season, who would you want making that choice? Do you want the GM who picks the players to kind of step in and say, hey, this is who I think we should make the offense coordinator? Or do you leave that up to a Dan Quinn to make that choice?
Oh, yeah. I think it'll, like they love to say, it'll be a collaboration between the two. They'll probably have to do their due diligence and ask around and things of that nature, see who works, who understands the players and how they like whatever plan they work or whatever plan is laid out that makes sense. Or whatever plan is presented by the person they're interviewing, the interviewee, makes sense for the staff. I do think it is interesting though, because when you draft certain players and you just see like, I'm sure if you're the GM and you see like, why does my tight end that I drafted who I thought can be a superstar, why does he only have 9 catches going into the final week of the season for 100 yards? Why don't he have that? Tight ends get that in one game. He got that in the course of a season, and you're telling me you can't use this motherfucker in the course of a season where he's not seeing because he was averaging 29% of the snaps, and that was like even with the 3 games that Zach Ertz before the finale, 3 games that Zach Ertz missed, like he was averaging like 60% of the snaps, 67 since Zach Ertz was out. But like, damn, like I'm sure he's looking at that situation and saying, "This is a 2nd round pick. I need more. I need him to actually show his talent." And I look at that like, well, buddy, I'm here to tell you, he giving it all he got. Ben Sinnott is giving it all he got, and you just gonna have to find something else at tight end in the offseason, buddy. And just use him the way you would hope a tight end 2 or tight end 3 can be used, bro. But all that to say, it's going to be a collaborative effort offensively. And actually, part of the conversation that we had, for me, I said, like, I think the defensive side is going to have to be the one where, you have to hit the home run. Offensively, you just need competence. You need competence. You need some innovation, some creativity. But more importantly, you need competence. Somebody who's done this before, who's vetted this shit, who's had success. And I think there's a couple people out there that, that fits that mold. But like the offense is still going to revolve around Jaden. It's just how do you make the scheme as well as the players involved? Like, how do you get them to pop around Jaden? But defensively, you're going to need a stud, whoever the hell that is. You got thoughts on that question too? Because we get up out of here with that. You got thoughts on your own question, Dre?
I mean, I would probably say when you're thinking about offensively, I do think that if we're worried about how guys are going to be used in an offense, especially when you talk about Dan Quinn as a defensive guy, I would probably, as the GM, will probably lean more towards wanting the GM to have more influence over who the OC is. That way, everything falls back on the GM at the end of the day. Because Dan Quinn, we know he could be a lame duck going into next season, or he could be on the hot seat going into next season. So why not, if okay, I can pick certain guys and I want certain guys to look a certain way in the offense, and, Dan Quinn's more of a defensive guy, maybe I do want more influence over who's going to be the offensive coordinator. But, I say all that to say, at the end of the day, they may just promote from within. You have a couple of guys or a couple of candidates within the coaching staff right now, and Brian Johnson, who's called plays before with the Philadelphia Eagles, Anthony Lynn, who's been a head coach before in the league.
Bobby Ingram called plays at Wisconsin.
Bobby Ingram. So, at the end of the day, the answer may be within. So it may not be too hard of a decision. And I think that if you are picking one of those guys or one of those 3 guys that we just kind of mentioned, you probably have more influence over what they're going to call, even though you're giving them the autonomy to pick the plays and call the plays. you already know what kind of offense you want to run, whereas a Cliff comes in with a pre-designed offense. Like Cliff has his offense and his thing that he wants to run, and you have to kind of conform to a Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator. And that may be where the disconnect is coming. If the disconnect reports are true, that, you know, Cliff runs this type of offense, but Adam likes these type of players, and his type of players don't work in Cliff's offense. So who knows? But if that's the case, like I said, you may be able to promote from within, and you may have more influence over how players get utilized when you have one of those guys from within. So who knows?
You know what's so interesting now? I think about even more. A lot of the guys on the offensive staff don't align from a philosophy standpoint offensively at all with what Cliff wants to do. Like you look at Anthony Lynn, right? Coming from the Shanahan family, the tree, him calling plays for Detroit, also being a part of San Fran with Adam Peters and Daryl Tapp. They don't mirror. Nothing in the run game mirrors, in my opinion, what the Shanahans do. You know, like it's just very interesting from that standpoint. Maybe that's where the disconnect is. Like I said, when you're winning, things look so much differently. When you're losing, things crumble, and this is what happens. But I want, before I guess we get out of here, if they were to elevate somebody from within offensively and defensively, or either one of the two, how would you feel? Because I personally feel like you should have just fired Dan Quinn at that point.
Shit, we could say this for Tuesday, bro.
I mean, it's still a conversation. I mean, we have a guest on, so we don't know their opinion. It's still something that could be talked about. I think Tuesday we'll have even more information to talk about, honestly.
I mean, if they promote from within, bro, I mean, I don't think promoting from within is gonna spark any optimism from the fan base or anybody. So I'll just say it like that. I don't think you're gonna get anything from anybody outside of the building that will say, like, you know, they made the right decision. It's impossible to look at this staff after a 5-win season, and like both sides of the ball has had their spurts, terrible spurts, and like think that you can see sustainability from either side, let alone having a head coach succeed in that environment. Like that's a recipe for, like, all right, bro, like your clock is officially ticking. Like you are probably out the door in a year or two, if a miracle doesn't happen. And when I say miracle, I mean like you need a drastic turnaround from coachability, messaging, developing, and then you need hella talent to, in the event that these coaches are some shit, that the talent supersedes the coaching, and you can still find ways to win.
Yeah, and for me, my thoughts on it, I think if you promote from within, it's a signal that this is a do or die season for the coaching staff, at least from Dan Quinn's standpoint, because it is basically signaling that we're not going to go out and make any extensive hires. We're not going to go out here and do any big search. We're going to kind of let you we're going to give you what you already kind of have. We're going to just promote from within. And Dan Quinn is supposed to be known as a developer of coaches. At least that's what he says. He says he likes to develop coaches, and he believes in that strongly. So that's why when I had kind of brought the idea up the other day to you all, I said I wouldn't be surprised if this happens, because that's what Dan Quinn has always kind of said, or that's what he's always kind of, you know, alluded to, in that he wants to do and to develop coaches. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at it, but at the same time, I do think it signals that this is a do or die year. Like, you probably can't miss the playoffs next year. If you miss the playoffs next year, it's easy for you to get out the door, especially because you talk about when you bring in a new coordinator, you're probably talking about a new multi-year deal. Not too many new guys are going to come in on a one-year deal, or at least anybody that kind of has, you know, a big rapport in the league, or a big-time reputation in the league. And I kind of think back to Eric Bieniemy. He was like probably Ron Rivera's only choice at the time when he was in his lame duck year, because Eric Bieniemy had a lot to prove. Like, it was a prove-it thing for him. Whereas right now, I don't know what your candidate pool will look like if you go outside. not knowing that Dan Quinn's stability, or not knowing what Dan Quinn's job stability is at this point, because I do believe another bad season for Washington signals the end for Dan Quinn, and that was signaled the end for an offensive coordinator. So I wouldn't be surprised at the promotion from within, but I also do think that signals that it's probably a do or die year for Dan Quinn.
All right. That's gonna wrap it up for the fellas. Again, happy new year to everybody who is checking in for the first time since we have been live in 2026, man. The fellas will be back on Tuesday. All 32 is back this week as well. We may or may not have a show Thursday. It's depending on the guest. But your boy, when they say 1, 2, 3 Cancun in the locker room, I say 1, 2, 3 Cancun outside too. I'm out the country, buddy. So it may not be a show Thursday, but if we get the guests, we for sure having a show. All right, so the fellas will be back on Tuesday. Y'all take it easy. Enjoy y'all night. Enjoy the game. We up out of here. Peace.
Chop it down, chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Damn, set, watch you throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive, this is Trap or Dive.